completely disintegrated. No more leaf springs, people. This is gonna be a 7-3 intensive episode. Dynamic wheel balancers on Bluey. Let's get started. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of Chasing 518. And today, we're gonna do some work on the wife's Excursion. When we bought this thing back in July, this is the suspension it had. So it, best I can tell, it's a rough country 6-inch lift. So it's got 4-inch blocks in the rear and then just springs up front. It sits a bit higher in the front, which if you're from California, I guess we call that a Cali lean. And if you're in Carolina, maybe it's the Carolina squat. But it doesn't look bad, but it definitely, trying to make it as easy to drive as possible for Mallory. So a couple things that's going on is, one, you're looking over the hood more than you need to. And then also it's got the steering linkage. It puts the steering linkage at a steeper angle. So that the steepness of that steering linkage right there directly affects bump steer. So every time you go through a dip, it takes the steering wheel and turns it a little bit. So we're just gonna try to improve the driving experience on this thing a little bit today and put some 4-inch leaf springs in the front of it. I don't have new shocks or anything like that, but I'm just gonna throw some springs in it, see if I can get the steering wheel line straight, and maybe this thing will drive a little bit better and I can figure out what shocks I do need. Also, it's got some pretty big creaks and groans. The leaf springs are visibly shot. All the little plastic isolators between the leaves are gone. The bushings don't appear to be there. Just remembered why I was carrying a tape measure. I want to get some before and after measurements. So let's measure the wheel lip before. So right now we're at about 47.5 on the passenger side. And 47.25 or so on the driver's side. Remember those numbers? Let's change out the springs and see what we come up with. I've been putting this off for weeks. We're gonna pull a wheel off Bluey right now, measure the length of, I'll have to unbolt the caliper and pull it straight so that I can measure the length of the brake hose and the clocking of the fitting that I want on it. That way Crown Performance can make me new brake hoses so I can put them back on the F-250 and actually drive my truck again, because it's been sitting without brake hoses for, well, when did we leave for Arizona? For over a month. Let's get this wheel and caliper off and figure out what we need. So these brake hoses are 33 inches long fitting to fitting because of all of the suspension travel of the front end, so that you can turn the caliper away from the frame and drop it all the way out and still not pull tight. So I'm gonna email Crown Performance back and let them know the clocking and the length and see if we can get those ordered up. I've got these Centramatic dynamic balancing rings that I'm going to be putting these on Bluey. So I own 3 sets of these now. I've got a set on my truck that have been on there for, I don't know, 6 years or something like that. I put them on when I put the 37s on at least 6 years ago. And then I found another set used for a good price, and those are on Mallory's Excursion, and now I just bought a set for Bluey. So what's really cool about these is this outer ring, you can hear it, it's filled with bead. So a lot of people put bead in the tire, but this guy's argument is that bead in the tire is bad because where the tire is flat against the road, the beads bounce, and they're constantly trying to find their sweet spot. But if you put them in this ring, number one, they can just go from vehicle to vehicle super quick. And number two, you don't have that bouncing off the bottom problem, I guess. What I think is cool about them, even if you do have your tires balanced, is as you chunk your tires and you pull pieces out of them off-roading, these are constantly looking for balance. So just a great thing to do on top of like a static or dynamic weight balance. So I'm gonna put one of these on Bluey right now, and then I'll put the others in the back and put them on next time I have that thing a little bit, next time I have it running and more accessible. But I'll put the one on before I throw the wheel back on. All right, so on my truck, I have them just like that. So when you drive slow speeds with these, you can actually hear that media roll around like that. It doesn't bug me at all, but I suppose it could bug you. I think it's kind of funny. It sounds like a rolling sand or something. Definitely not the loudest part of a 7.3 vehicle anyway. All right, I'm gonna throw the other three in the back, the rig, until I move this thing out of here with the e-fuel done. I did get some more e-fuel parts in the mail, so I'll show you guys that before we close out the video, because I'm gonna do a whole video on switching over Bluey to e-fuel and being done with that mechanical fuel pump that's been leaking. This is not going good so far. I've only gotten the brake caliper off on this side, and these Ford use these like phenolic pistons. I don't know what they're made of, but it's like some crumbly material with like a tin cap over the brake pad side of it. And this one just detonated. So now I got to get a new caliper for this side. I got the other one off okay. Both shocks came off pretty easy, and they are way blown. Yeah, look at that. First couple inches, nothing even happens. The shell of this one is completely disintegrated. Fell out in a couple pieces. But the problem I'm having right now is I need to take the front drive shaft off so I can drop the axle way down. And the cute, tiny little 8mm headed drive shaft strap bolts, I only got one out, the rest are rounded off. So I'm going to weld, just wire wheeled them clean. I'm gonna weld nuts on them, and then I can put a 1/2" wrench on those, and hopefully I can get them out. Not making good progress. In case you're wondering what all that noise is, that's acorns falling out of my oak tree onto the carport roof. Yes, it sounds like a war zone. Alright, what should have been a 5-minute job is 16 minutes of rolling camera time plus the prep time, so probably 20-30 minutes just to do something simple like that. So whatever, it's done. Let's see what's gonna fight me next. I think I'm at a point where I can knock out one of the springs. So I'm going to leave the U-bolts on the passenger side lightly attached. That way it just kind of at least holds the axle. And then I'm going to lower the axle away from the driver's side, see if I can get that spring out. Go from there. Alright, here's what we're up to. So, yeah, I would say that's about 2 inches. But this leaf spring pack's going to be way lighter than that one. So I think when I bought these Pro Comp springs that I put in the Whiskey Runner, they didn't specify gas versus diesel. I think they just had a spring. So my biggest concern is that they're going to be, even though they're a 4-inch lift spring, that they're soft and they're going to sit much lower, but we'll find out here soon enough. One way to find out. If we don't like it, maybe we just coil spring the front of this thing. The old leaf spring pack's really tall, and it had these really long aftermarket U-bolts. And if I remember right, these factory ones fit with the Pro Comp springs, but the threads look like garbage. So I'm gonna wire wheel these all off and get them ready to use, and maybe clean my face. All these rubber bushings in here that are kind of vulcanized to the inner sleeve and the outer shell, they need to be tightened at right height. That way they don't have any extra like bind or twist imparted on them. If it's like a polyurethane, like aftermarket style bushing like that, you can tighten them anywhere and they'll rotate on the poly. But these factory vulcanized ones need to be tightened at right height. So now I got that side holding the axle in place. I'm gonna drop the other side and change it out. And then I'm gonna have to go to the parts store to get a brake caliper. And I'm also missing, there's these factory little springs right here that spread the brake pads out between applications. And those had all rusted and broken off last time I was in here, so I need to get some of those too if I can. I know this is just my wife's daily driver, but I'm weird because I'm just weird. So I deleted the sway bars on this thing as soon as I got it. I do that on all the 3/4 and 1-ton trucks I have because I just don't feel like they need it. And I like the articulation off-road. So when you cut the when you take the sway bars off as Super Duty, you're left with this ugly bracket that hangs down below the leaf spring perch here. And you also can delete the steering arm, or the steering stabilizer that mounts here. So while I've got kind of access to both of these, I'm gonna cut both of those off. I already cut the sway bar mount on the driver's side is built into the cast, whatever that's called, spring retainer. So I cut that off when I had that side apart. So I'll clean up the passenger side, and that way it's just a little bit cleaner without all that stuff. Just simplify the bottom of the rig a little bit. Leaf springs are loosely mounted, all the bolts are back in. So now what I'm gonna do is jack up the truck all the way off the jack stands that are under the frame, and that way I've got like ride height on the axle, and then I'll tighten everything up, and then I gotta fit the track bar, and then I'm about to go pick up the girls from school. I'll get a brake caliper and some brake springy things and see if we can get this thing back together before dark. The acorns are so loud on this tin roof. Okay, we're back. A couple hour delay. I went to pick up the girls from school, then went to the auto parts store, and then picked up Mallory from work since I stole her car. And we got some stuff. So I went looking for just brand new track bar bushings. They had a part number, but they didn't have it in stock. But what they had was a full brand new track bar. So for $100, you get a brand new track bar with bushings already pressed in it. That just fits the timeline, honestly. If I'd planned ahead, yeah, I could have put a bushing in this one, but didn't happen. So brand new bushings, track bars in, brand new brake calipers on from the one I screwed up. What else did we get? Nobody had 4-inch lift shocks or the U-bolt strap kit for some reason, although you'd think that'd be common. But for those that don't know, I'm a parts hoarder. I have parts in sheds, garages, in my attic, and I thought, wait a minute, I know I've seen some dumb shocks in my attic recently. Lo and behold, they are probably a different valving, but they are the exact dimension. The only thing they were missing were the bolt sleeves at the bottom, and I have those too because I'm also a hoarder of things bushing spacery. This doesn't help me throw anything away in the future, just so you know. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these hideous red boots, cut off these shocks and get them on. And then I think I can set this thing on the ground, and depending on how that goes and looks, I'll put the bumper back on, see what it looks like. Just remembered one last thing as I was tightening the wheels that need to take the front drive shaft all the way off, because I put a 410 rear axle in this thing and the front is still 373 because I was hoping to wait and do this project until I found a Dana 60 instead of the Dana 50 that was already geared 410, but I haven't found it. Needed to get the springs on anyway because you saw the noise that one was making with the bad bushings. So I'm just gonna take the drive shaft off. That way there's no way Mallory or me or anybody else could accidentally put this thing in 4-wheel drive and blow something up. Now, moment we've been waiting for. Let's measure some fender lip heights. I think it was 40, 7.5 before. So right off the bat, we're about 45 3/4. So we dropped probably about 1.5 inches, maybe 1 3/4 inches. So that's good. Sits a little bit lower, not too low by any means. It'll need to settle. I still got to put the front bumper on, which weighs a few pounds. Obviously driving it and stuff. Fast forward to tomorrow, and then I'll show you guys this thing in the daylight, and we'll compare the numbers again after a test drive. Got my first smudge pot fire of the season. I can hear it boiling now. Must be getting low, probably getting to the moisture that's in the bottom. So hopefully it doesn't do anything crazy. I'm gonna get back to the Excursion tomorrow, but tonight I'm gonna work on some leaf springs here. So if you've seen Bluey, the Bronco, Bluey has a pretty good Cali lean to it. I did obviously a really cool 3-link coilover suspension in the front, but I didn't have any money or time to do anything in the back, so I just did a shackle flip. So Bluey sits a little bit sacked out in the rear, and anytime I take that Bronco somewhere, it's gonna be loaded full of trail tools, trail welder, camping gear, fridge, all that stuff. It's not really gonna be empty much other than maybe running around town. And I'd like to be able to tow with it, as silly as that sounds. I don't know what, but it'd just be nice to be able to hook a utility trailer to it or something and move around. So that being said, I'm gonna take some leaf springs I got and build some hybrids. So these are, this one and the far one are F250 rear leafs out of Sideswipe, but you could see from the accident that that one is bent. So it might make the most sense to use the main leaf out of an F250, but I'm not going to because it's bent. And maybe I could heat it and straighten it, but then I'd probably melt the bushing, so I don't want to do that either. So what I've done is stared at them both for too long, and I've decided that I'm going to keep all the gold ones from the Bronco pack, and I'm going to use the gold ones from the F250 pack, and that's going to add 2 leaves. One really short little one that's basically going to be a 1/4-inch lift block, and then another leaf that, like you can see, the truck has this leaf right here and the Bronco doesn't. So I'm going to be adding this one just to get more contact out at the end of the spring on the front and rear. So I'm going to blow these apart right now and see if I have what I need to kind of put these together, and then I can move all the extra stuff to the scrap pile and have these ready to go on Bluey, get my workbench back. Well, I'll stand back and we'll take a look at this thing together. So I'm gonna measure it on camera for you guys, but I already know the answer here. There is a slight lean now. These were the leaf springs out of my absolute beater that I did really horrible off-roading things to, so shouldn't be surprised that they're sitting a little bit different. I just don't remember it that way in that truck, so I'm a little bit bummed about that. Not sure what I want to do. Probably nothing. So I want to say before it was 47.5 on this side. It's now about 45.25. But the problem is this side is 46.25. So the driver's side came down about 1 inch, but the passenger side came down almost just over 2. So the overall look of the truck is right, but a little bit bummed it's leaning. So if you look down the spring, you can actually see it. It has its natural arc, and then it comes back up over the axle and then goes back down again. Like there's not quite enough leaf support throughout the middle here. So part of me is tempted to find one of the shorter leaves out of the springs I just took out and put it in there to try to support / supplement this thing. And I could even throw like an extra little shorty in the passenger side to make it, to kind of level it back out a bit. That's why I hate leaf springs. They're not like adjustable like a coilover everything. That's just the rule, right? Coil over the white truck, coil over Bluey. No more leaf springs, people. We're gonna let Mallory drive this thing around for a few days and see what she thinks. Oh, I also think because I replaced one brake caliper yesterday, it feels like the old caliper is doing a better job right now, and it's pulling a little bit left when you hit the brakes. So I might have to put another new caliper on. Back to work on the hybrid springs for Bluey. Mallory's out running some errands in the Excursion, so we'll get her feedback on the new front leaf springs and shocks when she gets back. But in the meantime, gonna get these leaf springs back together for Bluey. So here's a better visual of kind of the hybrid. So we're adding this leaf here. This is actually where I bent. This is where it's bent from that drag race launch from the Onyx Adventure. So I was kind of hoping that maybe this leaf right here will help with that. This one and this one are truck leaves. Maybe this one too? I don't remember. Anyway, so now I got it lined up. I got to get it clamped together. It looks like this truck one's got a bit more arch than the Bronco ones did. So we'll see how that's going to go. And then also the center pin for the leaf springs. So these, you know, I don't know, I guess spring shops order these. They're just a round head, all thread. But this one's a little bit bent, and I don't trust it because it sucks when those break. So I bought some grade 8 bolts in 2 different lengths, and then I just turned the heads on the lathe so that they're the same diameter. So we'll squeeze this thing together and see if we can get a bolt in here. I like to put anti-seize on these because I feel like they always just I'm going to put the other one together, and then once they're both together, I'll figure out how I'm going to bend these ears back over. I don't know if I'll heat them up and bend them over, or what I want to do there. Seven leaves total, and I think Bluey's got 5 right now. Yeah, I got 5 leaves right now. I'll give it a shot. If it doesn't work, then it'll just prompt me to convert to links, trailing arms, and coilovers that much sooner. Get the other one together and bring you back when I bend the clamps back over. I think the last of the leaf spring footage ended up on Instagram, not on this camera. So we got both of the hybrid packs assembled, and I'm just staging them here under the Bronco, but you can see there how flat and kind of minimalistic these packs are, and then how maybe, I don't know, aggressive those are. So we'll see how that works. I'll wait to do that until I've got the e-fuel done. I've got this thing running, probably bring it in the carport to do it. Well, that wraps up another week's video. Thank you for watching, and hope you guys subscribe if you aren't, and look forward to the next one. So what we got here in the garage coming up is, this is the 7.3 run stand I built. to test an engine for my truck, and here's the original engine I was testing it off of that has some bad intake valves. So what I'm gonna do is kind of rebuild the stand and make it look a little bit classier, put this engine on it, and then at some point we'll strip the heads off this thing, get them redone, put some upgraded parts, some head studs and things like that on it, and just have this engine ready to go should Bluey need it, or my truck, or even the Excursion, I guess, technically. We'll see you guys next week. As always, thanks for watching.